A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to our Salat program. And today, as I said, we will discuss about isti'aza. The word isti'aza, the sentence for isti'aza is A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. This word has to be recited prior to us reading the Alhamd. So before we read the Bismillah of the Alhamd, we should quietly say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Why should we say this? We will discuss today in this program. What is the benefit of saying this? We will discuss also this in the program. And what is the significance of these sentences that we say prior to reading the Salat, prior to saying the Alhamd. We will understand the benefits of this. We will understand and without also Salat, so other than Salat, other than reading in Salat this isti'aza, should we say it outside of Salat as well, and what kind of benefits does it give us in Salat. So before we understand what isti'aza is, we need to understand what shaitan is. We need to understand why we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Why are we asking Allah to free us, or we're asking from escape from this shaitan? To understand shaitan, we need to know what does shaitan do? What is his work? What mission does he have? Shaitan is an enemy that is inside us. There's sometimes you have two types of enemy. One enemy you see in front of you, and another enemy you see within you or inside you. For example, us Muslims, now that we are in this current situation in the world where we are suffering, Muslims are dying left, right and center, is because we did not see the inner enemy, the enemy inside us. We have a whole surah, Surah Munafiqun, where it says that they pretend to be Muslims, but they are not Muslims. They are munafiqs. And these munafiqs cause problems from inside the ummah, not from outside. Because the outside, you know who your enemy is. But from inside, it's very hard to differentiate who is a friend and who is a foe, meaning who is an enemy. So the same applies for this enemy. Shaitan is the worst and the most powerfulest enemy we are facing, and we all have to face him individually. He is so powerful that he is in our blood. He courses through our veins. He whispers from inside us, and hence to differentiate his whispers from negative ideas and good ideas, it becomes a challenge, because we also have our nafs ammara. And nafs ammara, when it joins with shaitan, it becomes a powerful magnet that pulls us towards negativity, pulls us towards disobeying our Allah, disrespecting our religion, and also not reading our salat on time. So we are asking escape from this kind of enemy. Now, who is this shaitan? Shaitan is Iblis, and a jinn who was kicked out of heaven, who was pushed out of heaven because of him disobeying Allah's command, which was to do prostration, i.e. meaning sajda, to Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. Because of him not obeying Allah's command, he was kicked out. But that wasn't the whole story. I will explain further on in our discussion as to why Allah kicked him out and why Allah did not have a discussion with him. We will, in this program, discuss this further on. But what I would like to touch on is that the isti'aza, this word, the sentence that we say, has two meanings. The first meaning of isti'aza is we are asking for escape. We're asking for help to escape from the clutches of shaitan. And the second meaning of isti'aza is, so we're escaping, we're running away from shaitan, and we are taking refuge in Allah. So we are escaping from shaitan's shar, shaitan's negative effects, and moving towards Allah's refuge. So we are taking refuge in Allah. Refuge from what? From shaitan. So there are two acts involved. One is running away from shaitan and running to Allah. So this is what isti'aza means. So when we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, it means that we are running away, we are escaping. Just like how we see people in this world when they are escaping as immigrants or as refugees from a war-torn country where there is war happening, there's tribulation happening, a calamity is happening, and they're running away to another place where it's secure and safe. The same concept applies for isti'aza. When we are saying these words, what we are saying is that we want to escape, we want to run away from our sins, from all these problems that we are entrapped by our sins, and run to a safe place, a safe castle, fortress, where we are protected from shaitan. And that is why we have to say this in our salat. And only in the first rakat, in the first alhamd, we have to say this. Then the rest of the alhamd, in the second rakat, when we read the alhamd, we do not need to say that. And there's a logic and rationale behind that as well, as to why we should not say this in the second rakat. And this has to be said quietly. Just like when we try to escape, we escape by not letting our enemy know. So the same applies here. We have to say this in a way where our enemy does not understand our plan. Just like the example of Bani Israel with Hazrat Musa, they escaped in the middle of the night without letting Fir'aun, their enemy, know what's happening. So they escaped. This is the same concept for isti'aza. When we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim in salat, we have to say it quietly so that our enemy doesn't understand. So that's one concept of how to say the isti'aza in salat. Now, isti'aza is like a soap, is like a cleaner, a washer. What does a soap do? A soap cleans us. When we rub it on our body, it cleanses our body, cleans us of all the dirt that we have on our body. So isti'aza does the same thing for our mouth. It cleanses us, purifies our mouth, our tongue, so that we can now talk to Allah. Just like when we do wuzu, we rinse our mouth with the thinking of we cleanse ourselves, purify ourselves with all the sins we've done. Isti'aza has the same role here as well. When we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, it means that we are purifying our lips, our tongue, our mouth from those bad words that we might have said prior to the salat, or ghibat we might have done. Anything that was other than Allah we spoke with our tongue, we are cleansing ourselves and we're purifying it for our Creator. So this is another meaning of isti'aza which our ulama tell us. So I've explained to you that the meaning of isti'aza is moving away from shaitan towards Allah and then entering the castle of Allah. So it's not just running and then just staying. So we run away. Where to? There has to be a destination. His destination is in Allah. From shaitan to Allah. Not just escaping. No, there's no middle ground. So we can't just escape and then we've moved away from shaitan, because if you're not entering a fortress, a safe place, you're still in danger. And while you're in danger, shaitan can still come over there until you protect yourself with a shield. A shield, isti'aza is like a shield. Once you've escaped and you've come out from the devil's grip, from shaitan's grip, then you enter this shield, protection of Allah, where then shaitan cannot enter. Now, why do we say isti'aza in the salat prior to saying alhamd? One of the reasons why we say this is because you must understand our enemy. Our enemy will try firstly to make us not pray our salat. He will try his best. And then when we do have the opportunity, we have given the blessings to read the salat. We are given this opportunity by Allah, this chance to read the salat, then He will try to make us disturbed in our salat. He will whisper in us by making us think about, by doubting our rakats, our arkans in our salat. He'll whisper in our ear, in our body, of different thoughts. Then He will bring us different sinful thoughts in our mind. And He will try to disturb us. So He will try to make the value of our salat less. Or even prior to that, He will try to make our salat destroyed. How He will destroy our salat? By bringing ujub in our salat, or bringing riyā. Riyā, as we discussed in our previous parts, which is if we have a thought of riyā in our salat, then it's like a missile hitting an aeroplane and destroying that aeroplane. So the same will happen to our salat. So shaitan also wants to do the same thing for our salat. And if he's not able to destroy our salat, so he wasn't able to stop us from performing salat, then he wasn't able to destroy the salat while we were performing, then he will try to distract our concentration from salat, so that we do not reach the mi'raj, so we're not able to reach the ascension, the proximity of Allah. So he will try to do this with our salat. Then how do we protect ourselves from this situation? We have to say, as I said, the isti'azah. And once we've said the isti'azah, then it limits the effects of shaitan in our salat. But this depends on how effectively we understand isti'azah and how effectively we say isti'azah. Because it's not just a word of the tongue where we just say something and we expect it to happen like magic. No, brothers and sisters, this is not magic. This is something that we have to feel from our heart. And if we feel from our heart, then the isti'azah has effect. We have to really understand that we want to escape from shaitan. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like this, where we say, Allah help us, but we don't make any effort for getting that help. For example, if someone wants to escape from a war country, they make an effort to leave that country and go to a safe country. And the same applies for isti'azah. Okay, we asking for Allah's help, but Allah has to see us make the effort. We have to take the effort. Just like we ask Allah to provide us our rizq, to provide us our food for our daily bread. For our daily bread, He does provide us, but we have to use our hand, our body to go and get it. The same applies for this. To gain Allah's help, we also have to make the effort. And hence, another example I can give you is, for example, we want to escape a lion, but we keep our head in the lion's face, in the lion's mouth. So then there's no effect in getting that isti'azah if we are staying with the same danger and not moving from that danger. Then it's no point of saying that isti'azah. So as I said, you need to believe in yourself. You have to feel, even if you are a sinful person, even if you commit a sin and you're trapped by the sins, and you know that this time you say isti'azah, you might not completely escape from the sin. But just understanding this is a big step in moving away from that sin. And that's where isti'azah helps us. And that's where Allah comes into the picture and helps us by ridding off shaitan from our inside our body, so that we can then move towards the right path and stay on the right path. So I've explained to you how shaitan in our salat tries to disturb us, and I explained to you how this isti'azah can help us. Now, how does this isti'azah help? How is this solution? So even if we say this isti'azah with understanding, with sincerity, with confirmed belief that if I say this, Allah will protect me from shaitan's whispers. And how does that happen? What happens is Allah removes 70 types of hurdles, those obstacles that are in our way, from our path. Because remember, our path is to the proximity of Allah, and the best way to get to the proximity of Allah is in salat. So in our salat, Allah removes 70 types of obstacles which might have interfered if we had not said the isti'azah. And so once these hurdles are removed, it makes the path a bit more clearer, a bit more smoother for us to perform our salat. And also, if you say the isti'azah once, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appoints an angel who continuously throughout the day keeps the shaitan away from us. Again, the condition is you have to say it with conviction, with belief, with iman, and with the concept that you want to move away from sin towards good deeds. And so I've now explained all of this. Okay, and now let's talk about the benefits of isti'azah. How isti'azah can help us, how it can be useful in our life. So by giving you the benefits, it should also, hopefully, dear brothers and sisters, give you a better idea, a better understanding of why we also say it in our salat. So let's see how this isti'azah helps us in our other worldly aspects of our life. For example, where we should apply this isti'azah in our life. Now, one example of this isti'azah where you should use this, as we have from riwayats, is that when you are having a domestic argument with your wife, with your family, and if one of you says A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, then the effects of shaitan at that point when you are having an argument reduces significantly. So if, for example, this fight was going to lead to being violent in some form, then that violent aspect would be reduced or would be cancelled because of you remembering Allah and taking refuge in Allah and escaping from the satanic effects. So this is one benefit of saying the isti'azah. So this can be used in any arguments. For example, you might have arguments in your family, you might have arguments with your friends, you might have an argument or a fight with your colleague in your workplace, and if you silently, quietly, within yourself say this isti'azah, then inshallah, God willing, Allah will protect you, will reduce the effects of those arguments to a little misunderstanding, inshallah. And this is one benefit of this isti'azah. So the argument will not take a violent tone, will not take a violent texture in your argument. Another way of using this isti'azah in our daily life is by, we have a riwayat in our religion where this should be recited in the morning 3 times. So this is not in the salat. Now we're talking ghayr salat, other than saying this in the salat, where else we should recite this. So this should be recited 3 times in the morning, and then after reciting these 3 isti'azahs, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir 3 times, then we have to read 3 ayats, the last 3 ayats of Surah Hashr. So if you read those 3 ayats after saying the isti'azah, then Allah, as I said, appoints 70,000 angels that remove that do istighfar for us. So they pray for forgiveness for us, and if we die on that day. So if we die on that day by saying the isti'azah 3 times and by reading the last 3 ayats of Surah Hashr, then our death will be as if we've died as a shaheed, as a martyr in the way of Allah. And to give you an importance, a value of this isti'azah was written by Jibreel Amin, Angel Gabriel, in the Lawh Mahfuz. So there's a Lawh Mahfuz in the Arsh Allah, in the firmament of Allah, where Jibreel wrote this and memorized it in himself. So this is one understanding of what this isti'azah is. Now coming back to Iblis. because he is the person that we are trying to escape from. We are trying to escape from these satanic forces. So what is this Iblis? Iblis's example is an example of a dog. So our ulama give Iblis's example of a dog that has been dragged out of his owner's house outside. So he's been pushed out, been dragged out from the owner's house, and has been put outside the house. So whoever passes by the house or tries to enter the house, the dog barks at them. And our ulama say that we should not pay attention to this dog's barking, because as you know, if a dog is barking at you, you should not reply back to the dog, and it's really stupid or illogical to bark back at a dog, because a dog is a dog and a human is a human being. Therefore, there's a difference between us and them, and that's why you will see that our ulama follow Allah's sirat, Allah's sunnat, in not arguing with some people that want to debate with our ulama on useless things, on things that are similar to barking at them. They ignore them. For example, they say, if you bring this ulama, this maraja, I will be able to prove my point. Some of our ulama don't even bother answering them, because it is the same example of Iblis. And what is the example of Iblis? The sunnat of Allah was this: when Allah had asked all the angels to prostrate to Adam, and Iblis was also in the midst of the angels, and he was asked why he did not prostrate to Adam. And when Iblis said, I'm made of fire, Adam is made of clay, Allah could have brought dalils. What does mean dalils? Dalil means reasonings, logical explanations to Iblis. Said, listen, clay is like this and fire is like this. If you put clay on a fire, the fire disappears, because when there's fire, flames igniting, sometimes we extinguish the flames by putting fire or sand on the fire. So God could have given him these kind of logical reasons of how to explain why fire is less important or less value than clay. But our Lord, the creator of this world, did not bring rational explanation. He didn't even bother talking to having a dialogue with Iblis. But what he said was in Surah Sad, ayat 77, قَالَ فَأَخْرُجْ مِنْهَا فَإِنَّكَ رَجِيمٌ. Yeah, what does that mean? That he said, get out from here, you are cursed, you're the cursed one. So Allah did not have a dialogue with him, and the same applies to us. If we get these doubts, we should not try to have dialogues with those whispers that shaitan puts us in. We should straight away say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, that we want to escape from these whispers, these satanic thoughts, and we want to go and enter the refuge of Allah. And if we do say this sincerely and we wholeheartedly say this, Allah will help us, and we will escape from the barking of this cursed dog. Okay, now further on, moving on, which I would like to share with you is distraction. So as I gave you an example of why this Iblis wants to distract us in our salat, because salat is one of those ibadahs other than sadaqah that Iblis loses hope. When he sees a believer standing for salat, then Iblis loses hope in that believer and tries to distract that believer from not performing salat. And I've already given you the explanation of why this shaitan wants us to be distracted in salat, and how he wants to destroy the salat. Just like, for example, when you are trying to prepare for an exam, and you have to be in a quiet place to study, to revise for the exam so that you can pass the exam. Or if you're in an exam and you have to do the exam, you want to make sure that you write the right questions. You want to make sure that your answers are correct, and you have to pay attention to what you are writing. The same applies for our salat. Shaitan wants to distract us from performing that salat, and hence whispers. So this isti'aza reduces the noises surrounding us. There's noises that distract us from gaining the proximity of Allah. So this is another reason why we should say isti'aza. This is another rational reason, logical reason why Allah has recommended. It's not wajib, it's recommended, it's mustahab to say this prior to saying the first alhamd in the first rakat. So when we say isti'aza, it removes from our head a lot of those confusions or distractions that might stop us from reaching the proximity towards Allah. Now, this isti'aza is, as I said, this isti'aza is not just for salat. It is, we should also understand it, what this isti'aza should be now, should be used for. For example, before you say this isti'aza, you should have a good comprehension of what it means, so that your heart can comprehend it. Our mind can understand it, but we need to make sure that our mind and our heart understands this. How this is possible is by understanding some points which I would like to share with you. For example, this isti'aza should be understood is by saying, for example, we want to escape from bad ethics. So we use this isti'aza to escape from bad ikhlaq. So bad etiquettes, bad manners, being from ill manners, moving into good manners, good etiquettes. For example, what kind of bad etiquettes we want to move away from, bad ethics we want to move away from, what kind of immoral things we want to move away from is like ujub, riya, zina, all those kind of things we want to move away from. And that's why we use the isti'aza. The third way of, we want to escape from a bad husband, or we want to take refuge from bad husband, children and wife. So if we have in our family a bad husband or a bad wife or rebellious children, so we want to take isti'aza in Allah. We want to escape from their negative impact and take a refuge from, in Allah, because we don't want our ibadat, our proximity to Allah be ruined by those kind of individuals. Another thing that you need to understand what this isti'aza is for is taking refuge from harmful effects of sins. So for example, the sin we committed, it has effects till 10 generations ahead of us. So we want to protect ourselves from the effects of sins that our previous generation has done, and also to protect our generation, our progeny, our children from the effects of our sins. So, dear brothers and sisters, when we commit sin, it has effects. It has effects in this dunya and in the akhirat, but it also has effects in the coming generation. And hence, by this isti'aza, we're asking protection from those negative effects of the sins that we have committed. So Allah then protects us from those effects. If, as I said, if we have said it sincerely. And we also, it gives us refuge from dangerous people, from corrupt government, from robbers, assassins, rapists, murderers. It protects us from those kind of people. It protects us from those kind of individuals. And so that is also why we should use isti'aza. So isti'aza, now this should be giving you a good idea of why we are saying the isti'aza, why we are saying this A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem. It is protecting us from not just satanic forces, it is protecting us from our family, those family members that are that might cause us to move away from the proximity of our Allah, which might cause us to not be near Allah. So they might be a hurdle to reach the goal we have. The whole purpose of us is to reach the proximity of our Creator, to love our Allah, to live for our Allah in this dunya. And if there are obstacles in the form of shaitan, in the form of our family, in the form of our relatives, in the form of our workplace, in the form of dangers that are lurking in this world. And another refuge we should take is in from sickness, illness and disease. So when we say this isti'azah, it is also we're asking Allah to protect us from illnesses, diseases that might stop us from gaining His proximity. Although illnesses is also sent by Allah, because there is a mercy in illness as well. Sometimes when we are sick, it purifies, it cleanses us. But we're talking about those sicknesses that might cause us not to gain Allah's proximity. So we ask Allah to protect us in those kind of problems. And also this isti'azah is used to take refuge from black magic, from doubts, and from works that might cause us to not perform our salat, not do good deeds. So this is also another reason why, dear brothers and sisters, we should use the isti'azah. And 10th reason is we ask protection, we ask refuge from depression. Because sometimes depression may make us so down that we might not want to perform our salat, we might not want to reach the proximity of Allah. So isti'azah is used for this purpose as well, to escape from depression, escape from sadness, escape from extreme extremities that might cause us not to reach Allah's proximity. And another reason why we should take refuge from is the calamities such as burning alive, burning to death, or drowning, or being buried alive in an earthquake, or being drowned by floods, all these kind of calamities. So we use this isti'azah when we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. It means that we are asking protection from all this shar, all this negativity that the satanic forces can take, and these natural problems that we have which might cause us to move away from Allah. Because sometimes we reach a problem where we don't want to read salat. We lose hope in Allah. And this is a sin itself. And this is a grave sin. It's a major sin. So that's why we say the isti'azah. This isti'azah helps us from all these things that I have mentioned to you, which it protects us from these things. And one more refuge I would like to point out is refuge from obstructions that obstruct us from doing Allah's work. The whole point of us being in this dunya is to do what Allah wants us to do. So we should eat for Allah, we should sleep for Allah, we should drink for Allah, we should work for Allah, we should sleep for Allah, we should we should have a job for Allah. So we should have all our life aspects from the beginning to end should be for Allah. If we are not doing this for Allah, then we haven't gained anything in this dunya. We've lived like an animal. Animal lives in this dunya and lives for this dunya and dies in this dunya and has no ending. But we have an ending and we have a beginning after this ending. And if we've only lived for this dunya and not for Allah, then we have not brought anything into the other dunya. Which all our ulama keep repeating to you, my brothers and sisters. This is a reminder for me and a reminder for yourself that by the help of isti'azah, by saying these words, by verbally saying these words and practically applying these words, by moving away from sin, by understanding and appreciating that we want to move away from that bad environment and move into a good environment, which is the environment of Allah, by being good or by trying to be good, then this isti'azah helps in all of those points that I've said. It gives us refuge from all of those things. It might be hard for you to believe, but we believe in a powerful creator. We believe in an Allah that things are impossible. Those things that are impossible for us to do are easy for him to do. Hence, by using the isti'aza, we can protect ourselves. And again, this is why we see how important this salat is, and how important this aspect, this mustahab part of salat, the isti'aza, is, how it helps us in our life. So what is the reality of this isti'aza? It is an escape from our sins to the obedience of our Creator. This is the reality of this isti'aza. So all the examples I gave of worldly escape we have, but the reality, the hakikat of this isti'aza is escape from the sins to the obedience of Allah, our Creator. So what does that mean? It means escape from obeying shaitan and taking refuge and obeying Allah. So it's an escape from obeying our lower nafs, our nafs ammara, the shaitan itself, and obeying our the other nafs. I've forgotten the name of the other nafs, nafs lawwama and nafs, there's another name. So it is escaping from that nafs to the other nafs. It is escaping from shaitan to Allah. It's escaping from committing sins to obeying Allah. So this is the reality of this isti'aza. And I said it has two parts, and it has to be applied in two ways. One, by saying it, and then practically applying it. And I've already explained to you how we practically apply this. And I'll give you an example from the Quran and from our prophets of how they applied this isti'aza. In Surah Yusuf, we read about Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, how he escapes from the shar of Zulaykha and shaitan. As you can understand, when Zulaykha wanted to entice Hazrat Yusuf to commit a major sin, which was adultery. So Hazrat Yusuf used this same isti'aza, and he not only just said it, but made an effort. As you can hear, as you read the story of Zulaykha and Hazrat Yusuf ran from that place where Zulaykha wanted him to commit the sin, where she was trying to entice him. And only then Allah helped Hazrat Yusuf. So he said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, I want to take refuge in Allah. And he also made an effort by running. When he did that, when he did this action, all those doors that Zulaykha had locked, those 7 doors automatically opened up, and the door opened and made a way for him to escape. So as I said, Allah will do the same thing for us. If we say these words and make an effort, then Allah will clear the path for us so that we can escape and take that route away from that danger, away from that place of sins, where Allah can bless us from those kind of problems. So this is how this isti'aza practically works in our life. And as I gave you an example of Hazrat Yusuf, another example is of Karbala, where Hazrat Hur alayhi salam, he moved from the Yazid's army, from the evil camp into the holy camp of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And this was again through the way of isti'aza, by saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. He made an effort, Allah gave him the path, and he moved from the enemy, it's from the soldiers of hell to the soldiers of heaven. And this is another example of how Allah helps us. Now there are 3 types of isti'aza. One isti'aza is for people like myself and yourself, dear brothers and sisters. Then there's one isti'aza for the awliya, those that have purified their life by cleansing their nafs, by moving their nafs from nafs ammara to nafs lawwama. And those are the awliyas, the urafa. And their isti'aza is different from our isti'aza. And the awliya's isti'aza is different from the isti'aza of our ma'sumeen. Now, our ma'sumeen are not like us. They are not in danger from shaitan, because shaitan cannot affect them. As in the Quran it says, I will not entice your sincere followers, your sincere people, because he already accepted loss. He already accepted defeat on those people that he cannot entice. And then he said the rest he will be able to entice and lead us astray. But the Ma'asumeen say the isti'aza not for escaping shaitan and not for those calamities that we are worried about, because they have their level is different from our level. Their exam is different from our exam. Our exam is to escape sins. Their exam is to avoid all kinds of obstacles, not even sins, obstacles that hinder the governance of Allah, the mazhar of Allah, the manifestation of Allah. They want to worship Allah in its purest form, in its highest form, where even these sins are an obstacle. For example, when they're giving us guidance, they're not committing any sins, but we are those hindrance. So they do an isti'aza for their benefit and our benefit. So dear brothers and sisters, I hope I have given you an idea of what this isti'aza is. And final point which I would like to end our program with is this, that isti'aza is also important because it makes us sincere with Allah, and it assures us that our ending is not in hell. Now, what does that mean? What do I mean by this? Dear brothers and sisters, here I would like you to pay attention and understand that there is a riwayat, not a riwayat, but a account from one of our urafas. I've forgotten the name of that urafa, but his accounts was that once he went to see a person dying. So he went to a deathbed of an individual. There were a few people of them, and so they were invited to help give that dying person the talqeen. Talqeen means so that the last person can say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. He can say the kalima, he can give the shahadat, he can give the witness, he can certify that he's a follower of Allah, he believes in the Prophet, and etc. etc. So these urafa went to this person's house, and they started to help him recite those kalima. So the dying person said, they said, say La ilaha illallah. The person said La ilaha illallah. Then because they were urafa, their inner eyes were open, so they could see and hear hidden stuff. So they heard in the room a reply from from those words that the dying person said. So if the dying person said, I certify that I believe in you, Allah. So the response was, Labbaik ya abdi, meaning I'm here, my servant. I'm here, I'm listening to you, I accept you, my servant. So the urafa were very strange. Where is this voice coming from? Who is saying this voice? Whose voice is this? Now, you and I might think this might be Allah responding to that individual, but unfortunately it was not Allah. The source of that voice was shaitan. Now you'll be surprised, you'll be thinking, as I was thinking, how can it be that this dying person is giving the shahada, is giving the talqeen, is saying La ilaha illallah, but the response he is hearing is not from Allah, but from shaitan. So the urafa that were there at this person's dying deathbed, they asked, who are you? And why are you saying this? Are you Allah? Then he said, no, I'm shaitan. I am his Allah. He said, why do you say you are his Allah? Then the reason why shaitan said this is because all his life he lived the life I wanted him to live. He obeyed me. He didn't obey the creator, the real Allah. He obeyed me. I told him to commit sin, he sinned. I told him to drink alcohol, he drank alcohol. I told him to commit zina, he committed zina, adultery, fornication. I told him to go to a nightclub, he did that. I told him whatever I wanted him to do, he did. So whatever he did, he obeyed me. So now that he's giving the shahadat, he's giving it to me. I, the shaitan, I am his ma'abood. I am his Allah now. I am his God, because he was listening to me all his life. So now in his dying bed, he is giving my shahadat, not your creator's shahadat. And this was an account from one of our urafa. So dear brothers and sisters, apply this isti'aza in your life, in all aspects of your life, sitting in a car, coming out of a car, going into a lecture, coming out of a lecture, say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem. So you ask protection from Allah. Always constantly ask refuge in Allah, because the best refuge is Allah's refuge. The best savior is Allah. The only savior is Allah. Hence, use this isti'aza with the right concept, with the right criteria, and inshallah it will open a path for you where you can achieve the goals that is really your goals, the goals that Allah wants you to achieve in this dunya, so that when you do go in the next dunya, you go with a blissful life, with a happy life in that dunya, with a lot of good deeds, proud and your neck up, not down. And so, dear brothers and sisters, this was the last part of this section of the program of isti'aza. I wanted to discuss Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim as well, but that will be in the next part of Salat. So dear brothers, pray for me and I will pray for you, that Allah gives us the tawfiq, the opportunity to walk on His path, the true path, which is our path. And by using this isti'aza, we can move away those obstacles in our Salat and in our daily life. Thank you very much.